we're going to dive into a bunch of different things here. We can't teach a full gun class inside of a foyer. But we're going to teach a little bit about firearms, and we're going to get into a little like de-escalation, managing people you don't know that maybe aren't acting quite right, and then we're going to end with pepper spray, which is a great tool, and you're probably way more likely in your lifetime to need to put hot sauce on somebody than put bullets in them. So we're going to talk about the full spectrum here. I'm just trying to catch my breath after lunch. So there's me. I used to be John McLaughlin. I used to do the weather. People asked me that. I heard it last night coming in from the airport in Phoenix, landed and went, "Oh, you used to be John McLaughlin." "You are correct, sir." And I still am. So do a lot of training yet, firearms training, work with churches, getting into kind of the school thing, working on programs for schools that want to arm staff. It's kind of one of my passions, keeping people safe in multiple ways. Helped out in the Phoenix area the last several years with a mega church campus, one of the remote campuses, getting their guys squared away. One of my team members decided to become a police officer. His dad was a cop, so he was on our security team. First 2 weeks on the job, had to shoot somebody. It's like, wow, we just got the red dot all working and actually had to use it. And he made a nice 25-yard shot and dropped a guy that held a weapon. He didn't get out of his car before he was being shot at and he had to shoot somebody. But anyway, it's pretty exciting in Arizona these days. The RV park we're at just got hit by border crossers, you might say, and cut fences, stole all kinds of stuff. So it's interesting times. We had last year pickup full of people came out of the desert in the middle of nowhere and started using baseball bats on the light poles, and they were welcomed by an AR-15 and a guy in a Ford F-150. So we had some fun with that. All right, let's jump into this. I'm going to accidentally put this into play mode. It's flashing. So today, whether it's the training we're going to do in here today with no real firearms, or whether it's real life, always be present. When we do classes, you're allowed to be you. We don't. We're in a church. We're going to get going here with a quick word of prayer, kind of regardless of where you stand politically, spiritually. You are totally welcome in our training. We care about you. We care about your safety, and all of us with IFC are here to be a source of information for you, be a source of help and guide you to the kind of specific training that you need. So if you don't mind, since we're in a house of worship, let's say a quick word of prayer and we'll get rolling here. Heavenly Father, thank you for the time that we have together today. Pray that you would put a hedge of protection around everybody that is in this auditorium today. And Lord, just minister to their lives, speak to them, watch over their families, and give us the eyes to hear and the eyes to see, rather the ears to hear as we watch for threats in our country today. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. So quickly, just going to cover quick gun rules, and I expand on these just a little bit. So when we talk about firearm safety, and most of you in here are carriers or have a concealed carry permit, everybody knows these 4 basic rules. But you notice I add some things in parentheses. So always point a firearm in a safe direction. Is there always a safe direction? No. And a lot of things we're going to respond to in our lifetime, whether it's an active shooter event, whether it's something going on in the church, you may have to have your firearm in a less than safe direction, but we always want to think, what is the direction of least consequences? So if we're having to move rapidly through a building with a lot of people, where might the direction of least consequences be? So this is just the laser pistol. It's not an actual firearm, it's a training aid, fires a green beam. So the direction of least consequence, it might be directly down. It could be directly up. It could be out in front of me like this. So there's lots of directions of least consequence that still, let's say we're in a 2-story building. Potentially, yeah, a bullet could go through the floor. Or if there's a floor above and we're running down the hallway with the gun index but pointing up, possible danger there. But least consequence. Okay, finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. All right, that is way too vague for the classes that we teach. So when we look down a line and I see this, does it look like someone's ready to shoot? They're like, well, my finger's off the trigger. Well, I can't tell. So that is not your finger off the trigger. This is your finger off the trigger. Indexed high and on the slide. Yes? I think I put it into play mode or something by accident. So having that reference point, every time your firearm comes out of the holster, you'll never end up having a negligent discharge. So don't have it down here, don't have it on the trigger guard, up high, in a spot that you'll become very comfortable on your firearm, knowing exactly where that is when you're coming out of the holster or whether you're moving. Okay, treat every gun as if it were loaded. Okay, I like to say, know the condition of your firearm. Good, thank you. So the condition of my firearm, if I'm starting the day, better be 1 round in the chamber and the magazine with 14 or 15, depending what the capacity is. That's the condition I want to know. So yes, it's loaded, but I know it's condition. I know there's one in there. I've done a chamber check to start my day. Number 4, know your target, what's around it, including beyond it. So anytime we're working, whether it's on the range or in real life, we're concerned about other people. So people that are crossing in front, running sideways, running behind us. So we're always keeping that in mind. So just reviewing that for folks, I know most of you have had a gun safety class of some kind, but just adding a little context to some of these 4 basic rules. All right, who has heard of this, the color code of mental awareness? Maybe 25%. Really important. This is the best way to avoid a gunfight is to avoid a gunfight. Right? Nobody here, I hope, is looking for trouble. If trouble comes to us, we will deal with it, and then, but under normal circumstances, we are wanting to be aware and, if possible, avoid a confrontation. So when my kids were growing up, I was the bad dad. Teachers at school, like, Mr. McLaughlin, did you really have to show your kids how to reassemble their firearm in the dark in the basement? How do you hear about this? Well, that's all they talk about in school is, well, my dad, we shut off the lights and we take apart our pistols and we put them back together again. Yeah, sorry, I'm the bad dad. Well, Mr. McLaughlin, your son made a necklace out of spent .22 shells and wore it to school. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to have to send him home. That's a dangerous weapon. Oh, it is. Okay. Very good. Whatever. So my kids, we would play this game when they're growing up. Recognize who's in condition white. Condition white is unaware. Condition white is having your head in your phone. Condition white is not watching who's around you when you're coming out of Walmart. So it is unaware of what's going on in the world. So the kids would say, wow, Dad, look at that guy, he's in condition white. There are people that don't care what happens to them, and I will give you an example of condition white. So during COVID, we weren't allowed to go to the Denny's in Arizona. You'd have to call in your order, then you go up and knock on the door, give them your credit card. They'd ring up the door, they'd bring out your Super Slam. So Mindy, the gal I was dating down in Phoenix, she's in her Jeep, and I said, I'm going to go get her food, I'll be right back. So I go up to the door of Denny's, knock on the door, and the lady comes out, give her my card, give my Super Slam. I turn around, and there's a guy at the window of her Jeep, and her window's rolled down, and he's got a Bowie knife up to here, holding it like this. And it's like, she doesn't have any clue. So I hustle over to the car, and I get over on the passenger side now, so I have the hood between me and him. I say, dude, what's up with the knife? He goes, well, I need to go into Denny's. And I said, not with that, you're not. And I kind of just went like this. And he's like, well, I need to go in there. And I said, why do you need to go in there? He goes, well, are they serving food? You know, here they come for us. And I said, no, you have to call in an order. And so anyway, I said, you need to put the knife down. No, he got a little more firm. I said, no, you need to put the knife down. So he walked over to the ledge of the window and put the knife on the Denny's window ledge. And then he went to the door and knocked on the door. And the woman, the manager, came out and shaking her head. And I said, this dude's coming here. He had a knife. He's demanding to get in. And she goes, oh my God, we just fired him at the Denny's down the road on Tremonto, and he said he was going to come up here and kill us. I said, well, apparently
He wasn't kidding.
he had a plan. And I just happened to be there. And Mindy's like, I can't even believe it. I didn't even see he had a knife. And he was talking to him at the window with my window rolled down. It's like, condition light. So we called the police. Took 20 minutes. And then the police show up. Well, there's no law against carrying a knife. Even a Bowie knife with a blade that long, hiding it like this, threatening you're going to come up and... So anyway, the guy got off. He came back 2 weeks later and threatened him again. That time they took him away. So we like to be in this area in condition yellow, but maybe even more so these days up into orange. That is being aware, but not being paranoid. So we're being aware of our surroundings. We're watching for things that don't belong, don't look right. And then we make a decision if we see things that don't look right. So we're watching our surroundings. You can stay in condition yellow all day by just being aware. It doesn't take a lot of extra mental work. Seeing something that doesn't look right, we bump up to orange. Now it's requiring a little more of your full attention. Like, let's say we were in here on a Sunday service and we see some guy that's standing back in the doorway and doesn't look like anybody we recognize. He's got a trench coat on. We haven't, doesn't seem right. Yeah, that's condition orange. And you're starting to think, okay, what's that about? Maybe I need to investigate more. Maybe I need to go talk with this person or be prepared. If this guy does something, what is my response going to be? So you're starting to draw that line in the sand. Or you're getting up to condition red saying, if he does this, I am into fight mode. So you've laid out a boundary, you know what the next step is, and you're prepared to move to that next step. I'll give you some more examples as we move along. Here's a very similar pattern. Military uses this a lot. Observing your surroundings, orienting yourself, seeing something, deciding if this happens, here's what I'm going to do about it. So they call that the OODA loop, but if anybody's been in the military recently, you probably have heard that. It's in the aviation world. It actually started with aviation. So very similar to the color code of mental awareness. Color code of mental awareness was started by Colonel Jeff Cooper, who started Gunsight in Arizona back in the mid-70s. And he came up with that, and it's definitely rules to live by. And this I absolutely love. If you've never read the book, Left of Bang, who's heard of this? Probably only people who've been in the military. So this is out of the General Mattis era, where the Marine Corps was tired of people getting blown up. Roadside bombs, people walking into the market, blowing people up. So they ended up hiring a group of people that created what was called the Combat Hunter Program, where they taught people mental awareness and how to cluster behaviors and watch for multiple signs. And the rule was if you had 3 things that weren't normal, cluster of behavior that was 3 things, you call it heuristics, that was time to move into action. It doesn't require 3, but typically if you see 3, something is not right and needs to be dealt with. So left of bang is dealing with something before the bang, before the explosion, before the terrorist attack, before the shooting, before something moves into a school or into a church. At our church program in Arizona for the CCV church, mega church, like 35,000 members, multiple campuses, this is part of our required training that we had to not only read the book, but go through all kinds of exercises where you watch videotapes of various events and spot what doesn't look right. Spot the lady who doesn't belong, who has different body language, who's blading away from everybody else. It's the lady with the bomb vest. And being able to pick up things like that by training your mind visually through watching past events. So excellent training. There's a ton of stuff online on YouTube. Patrick Van Horn has a bunch of modules that he's done. So left of bang, the combat profiling threshold, called the combat rule of 3. When you observe 3 anomalies or indicators, you must make a decision. Do not wait for more. Three are enough to which to act. Does this mean you must have three? No. Sometimes just one is enough. So it's been a great thing for us as far as church security people watching things. So I'll give you a real world example. It turned out to be nothing, but it was one of those things where, okay, it's Christmas Eve service, everybody is already there. Services have been well underway for about 20 minutes. A white van rolls up right in front of the doors to the church. Van I've never seen before. The guy comes out, he's dressed totally in black. He opens the back door of the van and pulls out a rectangular case. And I'm thinking, not today, ISIS, not today. And so I immediately moved toward him and I said, "Sir, can I help you?" And he's profusely sweating. And it's like, okay, there's my three things. And he goes, I said, "Sir, what's the problem?" I said, "The service has already been going underway." I said, "We have another one coming up. What's going on?" "Well, I'm a violinist and I was supposed to be." I said, "We don't even have violinists." "Well, is this the Lutheran church?" "No." "This is CCV, the Lutheran church is across the road." So the guy was he was in a panic, he was dressed to perform, had a white van, and something that didn't look like a music case, it looked to me like a AR-15 case. But at least okay, there's things that don't belong, something that didn't fit the baseline for time, location, the way he looked, the profuse sweating. It's like you gotta interdict, you gotta, what we call missionaries first, gatekeepers second. But go up and be friendly first, but be ready to move to, into condition red if we need to. Who's read this book? 3 will admit it. Okay, especially females, read the book.
Why just females?
I said especially because you guys are the best.
At fearing?
Nope, at recognizing things that don't look right. So you need to trust when those little prickly hairs go up on the back of your neck. Something's not right. And guys, when your wife says something's not right, you need to trust her. So guys sometimes I couldn't really be that. So it's a good book. He's not a gun guy, but a lot of what they talk about here, God wired us to have that sense when something doesn't feel right. And you need to trust that. It doesn't mean you're going to have a violent encounter. It means maybe now's the time to go somewhere else and escape and get out here. Move to plan B. All right, talk a little bit, we're going to get into this more of the pepper spray. Watching people, reading their body language. This is something I watch all the time. And if we're having a conversation with somebody and they're getting really tired of the conversation, what do? They move their feet. Okay, they're ready to go somewhere else. I think this conversation needs to end. We need to wrap it up because clearly they've talked long enough and we're holding them up and their body language now shows that the conversation is over and they want to basically get on with their day and do something else. I love this first saying. This will keep you alive. Eyes are the window to the soul, but hands are the window to the intent. So any good law enforcement officer, where's his vision at? Good day, sir, how are you? He is looking down at your hands. So when we're watching for somebody for weapons, after we went up and introduced ourselves, I'm watching their hands to see if they're going to pull something out or not. Blading away from you. So here's a real life one. This was in 2018 in St. Louis. I was at the National Weather Association conference, and little did we know that St. Louis is one of the most violent cities ever. And we're right downtown, right next to the river, the arches, the stadium. And one of my friends who, does anybody have a weather radio in their house? One of those white radios that will alarm over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So that's Midland Weather Radio. This is Bruce Jones, is the marketing director at the time for Midland, and he's a portly guy, about my height. And we're walking back after dinner, and it's about 8:30 at night, and it's dark. And we're walking up the street toward the hotel, and this guy eyeballs us, and then he starts making a 45 directly toward us across a busy street. And Bruce goes, "John, I think we're going to be robbed." And I said, Bruce, you need to stand on my right side. And he said, why? I said, just stand on my right side. So the guy's coming across the street and he's turning his back away and he's going like this. I said, ooh, that's a bad sign. So I went like this. And the guy looked at me and went, and walked back across the street. But clearly, we saw something that didn't belong. We were his target. He was moving at an angle directly toward us. Okay? That's a lot of bad things starting to happen all at once. And we have a thing, if that don't look right, probably isn't right. So we gave him one of those back, like, okay, you want to do that? Well, we're prepared to do this. And it ended everything right there, and we went home. Unfortunately, that same night, one of the female meteorologists at the conference was violently assaulted at an emergency room. So, bad place for weather conferences, or any conference, St. Louis. Okay, getting inside your reactionary gap, your personal space. When you talk to somebody that you don't know, how close do you allow them to get?
21 feet.
Amen. All right, who wants to be a volunteer? There will be no poking or prodding or shooting or stabbing. You want to be my volunteer? Just stand up there. So if I'm having a conversation with him, is this a good personal space?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good, because he can't reach out and touch me, right? But if he was just 1 foot closer, like right here, okay, so I'm going to ask you to stop my hand before I can touch your chest. Okay, ready? 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 Cannot do it. Now, stay where we're at. If I move 6 inches farther back. Okay, ready? Look at that. That much distance. So just figure, what is your personal space, and then just kind of take your foot. That's where you want to be. Now, how about talking to somebody? Like, guys coming up like, we'll talk about this in the pepper spray, but one you see all the time is like, hey man, my car's broke, you got a phone call. I just got to make one phone call, and they're moving into your personal space. Where do you want to be with your hands? You want your hands like down here, oh, where's my phone? Like, why do you want your hands up here like this? Hey dude, I got this COVID, man, it's horrible. You want to stay away. Because now if your hands are up here, and we call interview position or the defensive fence, so put your hands up here like this. If I'm going to move in on it, look at that. So just little tiny things like that, and then you're going to avoid a lot of problems. Thank you. We call it micro-ranging, just like putting yourself at 6 inches outside their gap, so at least you have a chance of seeing something. And if it doesn't look right, don't be sitting down here with your hands like this, because now by the time you get them up, you've already got a blade into your side or something like that. Direct line for you, really bad sign. If you see that, move away in a different direction or be prepared to deal with it. So my unnamed law enforcement friend was in Washington, D.C., and he was rolling dirty, as they say. He was carrying his firearm in Washington, even though, of course, you can't carry your firearm in Washington. He said 3 times from his meeting back to the hotel, this happened, where guys made him, came across the street, started to show a weapon, and he showed his weapon, and every one of them stopped before it went anywhere. But of course, you can't carry a weapon. He goes, I took my chances, even as a law enforcement officer, recently retired, that I was going to carry a gun in Washington, D.C. because it's such a violent place right now. All right, furtive glances. Do you understand what that means? Sizing up, looking things over, looking around the area. Like if I do this to him, will anybody else see it? Where's the cameras? Where's the... So when you start to see that, when people are looking around, bad sign. Feet positioning. Talked about like guys that want to get away. How about the guys that are squaring up on you? Or maybe moving into that bladed stance, starting to get into a combative position. Bad sign. Clenching a fist, lowering a jaw. And this was that Bruce guy at church that we talked about earlier with the knife. He was like, rrr. It's like, yep, this isn't going to go well. When you see things like that, you need to be prepared and take those seriously. All right, some of you have heard this story, so those that have heard this story know the answer, so don't interject. The rest of you, when you would shoot, raise your hand. Okay, so real life story. We're in a Bass Pro Shop. in Las Vegas. Just a few months after the Las Vegas massacre. And it's New Year's Eve, New Year's Eve. So there's like military vehicles getting ready to block off exits and everything. My son and I had done a class. We had just done 2 days of edge weapons and 2 days of hand-to-hand, and then we had a break and then went back for another class. And we're in Bass Pro killing some time, checking out the latest 511 gear. And we see this guy in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and he's in there and he's just kind of looking around. He's doing the look. Nathan goes, "Dad, yeah, I see it." Furtive glances, checking out the surroundings. So then he walks into the aisle with all the gun gear, and I'm like, interesting. And he's doing this, and he walks right up against the aisle with all the holsters. And then he goes like this and raises his shirt, and he has a little green bag he's untying out of his pants. And he reaches in and pulls out a Ruger handgun. And time has started to slow down just a little bit in my mind. And I'm thinking, wow, and I can actually see in the cylinder that there's brass in the cylinder. And I'm thinking, wow, we just got done with 4 days of training, now I'm going to have to shoot somebody. So the gun's out, the gun's loaded, but it's pointed at the ground. What do you do at this point? You draw the red line saying if that thing starts coming up at all, you're going to drill this guy. So I actually slightly moved because in Bass Pro there's lots of gun safes and that's an excellent backstop. So I told Nathan to get over to the side of me, and I kind of moved so there would be a good backstop, and I just watched. And it didn't take long, and the guy's still doing this. And he goes up and he grabs a holster and tries it on the end of the gun. And he's going like this, and he slides it back in his pants. It's like, wow, that close. You know, like heart rate's starting to go up, and you're thinking, well, this guy's either really stupid or he's about ready to start a shooting in Bass Pro on New Year's Eve. So we circled back around, told the front desk, what had happened. I said, the dude in the sweatpants just shoplifted a holster for his Ruger 44, I think it was. I'm like, seriously? I said, yeah. Nathan says, are we going to stay and watch what happens next? I said, nope. Our job is done and we're leaving. So ironically, I called and tried to get the video and they wouldn't release it. I said, we watched this happen. This would be like a great training thing. To watch this guy take the gun out and the look, they wouldn't release it to us. Okay, my friend John Correa, who has active self-protection on YouTube, now with over 1 billion, with a B, views of his channel, which is insane. He has 11 employees now, thanks to being paid by YouTube, all with gun content. Everybody else is getting banned, but apparently YouTube's making money off him, so they're going to stay with it. So, in a self-protection, these are called basically your 5 rules plus 1. Distance. So distance can be getting out of the scene because you have appropriate distance, or moving close enough to do something about it. Who's watched enough videos where somebody has tried to do a disarm or to take control of a weapon and they were just outside of arm's reach? And a lot of times it turns out badly. So if you have a guy with a knife, a gun, whatever, and you decide that this is the day that you need to be Mr. Superhero, you need to be close enough to get to it with the minimum amount of movement. So if you have a counter, like you're at a quick trip or whatever, and there's a counter between you and the bad guy, this reaching over to try to get usually ends badly. You got to be close enough that you can close that distance, deflect the firearm, kind of like what we were doing with the little demo there, and then get control of the arm that has the weapon. So, distance, deflect, dominate. It is hard as good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people to move to these next steps. Dominate means distract means inflicting rapid, unrelenting violence. That is breaking arms, doing whatever you have to do to end that scenario without that weapon getting into the fight. And then disarm, disable. So it's not even something great to talk about in church because like, we're good people, we don't want to hurt people, but in a situation like this, these rules need to be in your mind. Like, if I have to do this, and I don't have my firearm because maybe we're in the gun-free zone or whatever, and someone's coming in to do something, I have to be close, I have to be able to control the arm or arms that have the weapon. I need to dominate that at least briefly while I inflict some kind of massive pain on this person, whether it's breaking arms, breaking fingers, poking eyes, whatever you got to do, and get the firearm away from them and disable the person if you can to keep them from hurting somebody else. So he's got a lot of great videos on this where he breaks it down through multiple events where he talks about the 5 Ds plus 1. All right, combat mindset, and this is something we've started working with. Like, how do we teach people to be the combat mindset, to have that warrior mindset, that we're going to prevail no matter what. We may be in a situation where we are unarmed, and so my conditioned light went up a little bit because I saw the door open there and someone poked their head in. Focusing on being a protector. I think especially with men, it seems like a lot of the guys that are good guys and church guys, like they have that art of the protector. How do we continue to instill that in someone? So, it comes through mental training, doing the stuff like you're here today, watching videos, studying, being in the Word, and decide that, I'm not afraid of dying. Why am I not afraid of dying? What's the alternative?
Heaven.
Going to heaven, all right. I'm totally 100% sure of eternity. So if I have to step in and it doesn't go the way I'd like it to go, man, I've got a solid plan. I know where I'm going. Therefore, I will not have that debilitating fear when it's time to do something. So training that into people, and I think people of faith, it's a lot easier to. And it's done through doing scenarios, being shot with the paintballs, being shot with simunitions, going through all kinds of tactical training. And as we heard earlier this morning, video analysis is actual training. Watching videos, breaking it down, not just mindless watching of YouTube videos, but being present, watching what's happening, learning from that will train your mind and will reside in your memory when you need it. Here's the best way to stay out of trouble. The rules of stupid. You violate 2 of these, you might get to come home. You violate 3, maybe not. So in Phoenix, all the good taco trucks are in the worst part of town. Okay? So you might go there with your stupid friends, but you probably shouldn't go after 8:30 at night. But you go stupid places, stupid times with stupid people, bad things are going to happen. As we mentioned earlier, the best way to avoid a gunfight is avoid a gunfight. So why do we teach handguns? We're going to do pepper spray after a bit, but why do we teach handguns? It's an equalizer. So I can take any person in this room, whether they weigh 90 pounds or me 215-ish, and I can teach you to properly shoot a firearm rapidly and accurately. So it doesn't have a lot to do about physical ability or your size or disabilities. We can teach people how to shoot a firearm so you're able to handle a larger dominating opponent. It's smaller and easier to conceal than a rifle and much lighter than a police officer. What about caliber? We tell people, carry what you will carry. If you only will carry a 22 because that's all you're comfortable with and all you want to carry, then carry a 22. Well, we recommend at least a 9mm because it's a good balance. Fairly lightweight round, you can shoot rapidly with not a lot of recoil, and you can carry a lot of rounds with you. Shot placement is more critical than bullet size. You put enough rounds into the thoracic cavity, eventually they're going to stop. But remember, handgun rounds are ballistically deficient. If we could all carry rifles all the time, we would. But we can't. Therefore, handgun rounds, you may need 2, you might need 1, you might need 15. You don't know, you don't get to make that call. With all the drugs and everything going around, hard to say. Here's an example of ammunition. Why we recommend hollow points, because once they go in, they make a mess. But you would be surprised at the number of people who go through concealed carry courses and nobody ever covers this. And you see their ammo and they're carrying full metal jacket training rounds in their concealed carry gun. It's like, what you plan on doing with that? Putting holes in people that are going to go through them and hit the Girl Scouts behind you selling the cookies? So having good ammunition. From the tests that we've seen, 2 clear recommendations: federal HSTs and the Spear Gold dots. Okay, quick, let's see. Can you play that from back there? Great. So when we talk about wound packing, can you see how the wound channel forms? So the bullet ends up here, but you have that expansive shock going through the gelatin, which happens in the body. That's why we get these big cavities that have to be packed if we get shot in the arm or leg. It makes a mess inside. And a friend of mine from Channel 8...
As the trigger is pulled, the trigger bar pulls the firing pin back. The connector guides the trigger bar downward, releasing the firing pin and allowing it to strike the bullet primer. The expanding gases from the powder charge propel the bullet out of the barrel. The recoil forces the slide back, unlocking the barrel as it tilts downward and allows the extractor to remove the spent cartridge from the chamber. As the cartridge case is fully extracted, it comes into contact with the ejector and is forcefully ejected from the firearm. As the slide moves forward, the bottom rail of the slide strips a new cartridge from the magazine and pushes it up the ramp of the barrel and into the chamber. The cycle is now complete and the Glock is ready to fire the next round. As the slide moves back, the hook on the connector is forced inward. This allows the trigger bar to move upward. As the slide returns forward, the trigger bar is then able to retain the firing pin. Releasing the trigger allows the connector to move back into place, again enabling the downward movement of the trigger bar. The Glock contains 3 safeties. The first is the trigger safety. The trigger cannot be pulled back unless the safety is engaged, allowing it to move past the frame. The second is the firing pin safety. The firing pin cannot move past the safety unless the trigger bar has pushed it up, allowing the firing pin to move past this safety. The final is the drop safety. The trigger bar is held in place by the housing. The firing pin cannot move forward unless the trigger bar has moved back and cleared the ramp of this housing. The inside of the barrel contains polygonal rifling. This rifling causes the bullet to spin, providing stabilization throughout its flight and increases accuracy. Cartridges are fed into the firearm via a spring inside the magazine. When the final cartridge has been ejected, the magazine follower forces the slide lock lever up and locks the slide back when the magazine is empty.
So Matt Ribben was a graphic artist at KCCI, and I haven't talked to him for a few years since I left, but he would do those videos, that complete animation on his computer, take hours and hours and hours and hours to render. But that's like millions and millions of views on YouTube. But it's a good animation for those that carry handguns of actually how they work. Was that fairly correct? Anything you saw that was a little iffy? Yeah. So he's done a couple on rifles that were a little... Go ahead.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on why we use hollow points versus our regular ammo?
Right. So the best backstop in the self-defense scenario is actually hitting what you're shooting at as far as the threat. And so when that hollow point moves through the clothing and into the body, it flattens out. And so a 9mm will become about the size of a flattened nickel. And so now you're doing all kinds of wound, but you're also slowing down the velocity of that round so that it doesn't penetrate out the backside, or if it does, it has very little inertia left over. So it basically keeps it in that 12 to 18 inch space, doesn't over penetrate, go through somebody else, through a wall or something like that. Where if you shoot a 9mm, chances are if you don't hit bone or something, it will penetrate through the person, through 2 or 3 more rooms of drywall and maybe even outside. You'd be surprised how far a handgun round will go. I know of one case, at the RV park where somebody shot from the road and into the park, and it was over 800 yards. And actually penetrated through the wall of a camper and into a case that had a bunch of compact discs. Do you remember what those are? Went through the compact disc case and then finally stopped. And so when I opened it up, I could find the round, and it wasn't even deformed, but it had gone, you know, essentially 2,400 feet from a road into a park with that much velocity. So, yeah, FMJ, great for training, very, very poor for self-defense. All right, people ask all the time, what gun should I get? And that is the one you will actually carry on a daily basis and train with. I do not like, well, I train with this, but I carry this. Well, you want your training to be with the same firearm so that you're so intimately familiar with it that when your autonomic nervous system takes over, that your body is doing the right thing because it's done that break on the trigger thousands of times, and it's not a different gun today, and when it comes back and you're hitting the wall, it all of a sudden it goes off when you weren't intending it, because today you're using your 3-pound trigger instead of your 5-pound trigger. So find what you're comfortable with, train with it, and carry it, and don't do a bunch of changing around. If you do change weapons in midstream, then make sure it's something very similar with a very similar trigger break so that you don't have a negligent discharge when you're not planning on it. Really important, get all your fingers on the grip. Why is that important?
More recoil.
Recoil control. So we'll take our little laser pistol here. So where is the hinge point? When it recoils, it goes like this, right? So if I want to stop that recoil, what point on the gun is the most important spot to stop the recoil? Right here, down low. See this movement? It's like a teeter-totter. So if I have force here, it's going to keep the barrel. So what finger is that? Pinky power. In the world of firearms training, the pinky is the most important for controlling recoil. So I want a grip large enough that I can have my pinky on the grip. And then as I get my other hand on there, it's pinky crushing pinky. And so then I can shoot very fast and accurate without the barrel doing a whole bunch of this. Or if it does, it comes right down to where it belongs because I've got that pinky on there. If I take my pinky off, there will be more movement like this. So a quick exercise here. Billy, since he's the strongest guy in the room, or at least claims to be, right?
You said it.
All right, so grip my elbow like it's the stock of the gun. Now take your pinky off. Okay, now hold with your pinky. See the difference? It's amazing what this will do properly used. So the guys are going out and buying these tiny little mouse guns that you can't get your pinky down around the grip. You're not having a bunch of recoil control because your pinkies are hanging down off the bottom with no real estate. So be thinking of that. Adequate rounds. So this is a point of a lot of research right now. Very, very rarely in self-defense shootings have they ever gone past 10 rounds for a citizen. Happens with police officers all the time. But for the citizen, very rarely past 10 rounds. So who's comfortable only having 10 rounds? So it hasn't happened except for I think once in all these 40,000 gunfights have been analyzed involving citizens, and I think only once did they need a reload. I'm not going to take that to the bank, especially this day and age, because now we're talking about protecting schools and churches and all that. So I want extra gas in my car, in my airplane, and extra rounds in my magazine. So you're thinking 12 to 15. If you're only carrying a 10-round gun, definitely consider having an additional magazine. If you're like me now, bifocals, eye issues, consider a red dot or a green dot sight. I much prefer that over a laser. Okay? Night sights for at night. Stay away from lasers, especially laser-only options, meaning you don't have a flashlight that goes with it. Why are lasers by themselves a bad idea?
You can't see anything around it.
You can't see anything around it except the red laser. So, real quick story. Went to Glidden Ralston back in the day in western Iowa. A guy named Mark Sturm. He's a taxidermist and outdoorsy guy. His sons came back late at night one night, and he didn't think they were coming over. It's like 1:30 in the morning, and he hears a noise, and he gets up from his bedroom and peers around the corner. He's got a gun like this, except it has a laser on it, a red laser, and he's actually put the laser on the guy that's in the living room. Got the red laser on the guy's chest, and the slack is out of the trigger, and he's ready to press and break the shot, and all of a sudden, "Dad, quit effing around." That's why you want a flashlight, okay? So you want a good tactical flashlight. You can light up what you're seeing, make sure you're positive of what your target is. And then secondary to that, if you have a weapon at home, good to have a light on the gun. But I always want an external flashlight that I can search around with, so I'm not pointing my gun at things that don't need to be pointed at. I'm trying to take advantage of the pistol light. So therefore, I'm not a big laser fan unless it's absolutely coupled with a flashlight. So good tactical flashlight in your home. And flashlights are a great tool for self-defense without having to do anything. Flashlights and a good loud voice. So the modern lights, this is just a Phoenix Chinese flashlight, but they're a pretty decent brand for a cheapo light. So these are like 120 bucks. So we had a theft going on at the RV park where somebody stole a solar panel. It's like, hey, it's a solar panel, right? Except it was a solar panel I paid for and put up to control our light. We drive into the park and goes, "John, I think that was your solar panel walking off." I said, "Spin this thing around." And I got out and put 1,000 lumens right in their face, and I said, "Stop right there!" Put the light on and just set it on the ground. Now walk away and don't come back. Totally solved the issue. They couldn't see me, they couldn't tell if I was armed or not. I was just putting 1,000 lumens right in their grill. So, good flashlight and a good voice sometimes helps. So, identifying that target. Gun world. You're going to carry a smaller one. I do have a SIG 365 XL, and that's just enough to get your pinky right there. But the regular SIG 365 is not the XL. Pinky hangs off the end. So unless you put a grip extension, that's a no-go. I like the RMRs, I like the hollow sun sights. I shoot both of those, and with practice, you will be just as fast with the red dot as you are with iron sights. Where do we shoot? How many times? So we just took a trauma training in the morning. If we take this out in here, the probability of them fighting for long is pretty low. Maybe a couple minutes at the most with the heart shot. Lungs may take longer. You hear all the time, well, why not shoot him in the leg? When would you shoot somebody in the leg? Well, there might be times.
That's all you can see.
That's all you can see. So let's say I'm hiding behind something and all that's sticking out from the other side is my leg and maybe the gun. Oh yeah, I'll shoot him in the leg. Because that's all that's available. But otherwise, yeah, usually a poor option. 9mm rounds trying to get through hips and stuff like that. Most of that came out of rifle fighting. If you have a rifle, yeah, you'll be able to break that up, but maybe not with a handgun. Is the ocular cranial shot a perfect world? Can you guarantee if you hit them in the head box and that A up there that the lights are going to go out? Yeah, generally yes, but a lot of times no. And I was just talking to a guy the other day that his A shot was up at the top of the eyeball socket. And the round went clear across the top and back into the medulla. And the guy was still conscious. But he could continue a fight because he was didn't go into the brain, just skipped and went across the bony part right up here and clear around the top of his skull and into the back. So they had to take the whole top off. And my cop friend was telling me, "Oh yeah, I was right there, I gotta watch you." He said, "You want to see this top of his head come off?" "Oh yeah." Put it back on, sewed them together, took them to court. So this is ballistically deficient handgun rounds. So here's a guy's jacked up on medicine, or on drugs, I should say. Watch how many rounds it takes, and then we'll talk about stance and grip and all that. Go ahead and play that if you can back there, please.
Wow.
Pretty much took the full magazine before he stopped. So again, handguns are ballistically deficient. So what did you see in there that maybe he could have done differently to help just a bit? How many hands did he have on the gun? One. Yep, so even up close, if you can get 2 hands on the gun, and even if you have to pull it back to retention, you're still better off, more stable shooting here than walking backwards and shooting.
I have a question. So in a situation like that, if you have, like, I don't know, pepper spray, would it be a good idea to attempt that before you...
If it's all you have. But if the guy's got a baseball bat or a club or something like that, is that a lethal weapon?
Yes.
Absolutely, 100% all day long.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will quickly escalate to the proper use of force if someone has something like that. Okay, now if they're standing still from 10 feet away screaming at you, then yeah, you could try the pepper spray, but if they're aggressing toward you, the options have pretty much been limited to one. But if pepper spray is all you have, yeah, give it a whirl, because eventually it might help. Good holsters prevent accidental trigger manipulation, so there's no way the trigger can ever be manipulated in there. Provides good retention. You can fight, you can get on the ground, you can roll around, your gun's not going to come popping out, and allows a firing grip coming out of the holster. So when we say a firing grip, that is, by the time you're out of the holster, your hands are in the position ready to shoot. I see a lot of people when they come out of the holster, it's all kinds of horrible stuff. It'll be like this, like, oh, we got 2 fingers, oh, okay. No, it should always be a firing grip where when you're coming out, fingers on the slide, your other hand's joining, and you're pressing out. I see guys that grip like this, they'll come out of the holster, all this free space in here, how's that for recoil control? Yeah, like horrible. So, every time in and out of the holster, firing grip. And it allows safe reholstering without having to remove the holster, remove your belt, remove clothing, whatever the case may be. You see some really horrible designs out there. How's that for keeping the trigger safe? Yeah, no. How about this one? It's a really cheap molded holster. When it goes pushed in, it's going to manipulate the trigger because the Kydex was overcooked and shrunk in. So, see a lot of dangerous designs. Therefore, carry your trauma kit if you're around people that carry crap like this. Some of the really cheapo holsters, you can grab them and break them right off because they're plastic. They're not, true composite or polymer, and these are the worst. You see a guy like that in the store with one of those dangling off his hip, it's like, oh, great. Stay away from that because they will collapse back down as soon as the gun comes out. Flimsy, if you try to carry it on the outside of their belt, that one's got the little clip that's supposed to clamp down over your belt or pants, but once it comes out with your belt on, it collapses. Now what do? So this is a laser pistol. This is to show only, so this is not a real firearm, but they take their gun and they'll dig it in here like this and try to open up how's that look for safety? No. I have seen it. So the classes I teach, none of this crap is allowed. You got to come with the proper gear, and if you don't, then we'll get it for you so that you have the right stuff. So for firearms, before we move into the less lethal stuff, these 3 rules. Grip is the master. Why is grip the master? Because a lot of people work on stance and breath control and all that. What kind of stance are you going to have when you need to shoot in a self-defense situation?
Don't know.
Could be on the ground, could be hanging out of your car door. But if I can teach you to properly grip the firearm, with that pinky pressure grip, you got fore and aft tension with the hands pushing and pulling, and you got the side of your palms, you will hold that gun solid. And now your sights are going to come back to where they belong, so when you get the sights on target and press the trigger, they're going to come right back to where they were and ready for a second press. It's not going to be wobbling all over and have to settle back in. So working on these three fundamentals, we teach classes now. It's like grip is the master, sight sets the pace, because I can only shoot as fast as I have sight alignment. But the better grip I have, the quicker the sights are going to come back down where they belong. Trigger's a servant. It only goes off when I tell it to go off. Does that all make sense? We can get in and talk about grip and all that, but to break it down into simple, not being a concealed carry class, is when your firearm comes out, the flat part on these fingers is over here, because if I over grip, now I don't have a good angle to my arm. That's not lined up. I want a good lineup from this bone totally straight to where the firearm is. So that's nice and rigid, because this, anybody do combatives? What's the weakest spot? Right here, right in that wrist area, easy to manipulate. So the more I can keep that all in line, and what does that leave? It leaves a nice little place where this belongs. So we do what we call like the Judy chop, where you roll that hand in there like that, get that palm up against the grip. So now I've got 4.5 tension, I've got that in there, lock it down, keep the thumb somewhat relaxed but along the slide. And since I'm not crushing with this hand, my trigger finger now can manipulate without moving the gun. Or if I over grip with the right hand, every time I look at that, if I grip, my trigger finger is automatically moving with it. So your firing side grip should be firm, but not to the point where you can't do this without moving your other fingers. And then we're locking it all in here. So fore and aft, side tension, it's all filled. So now I want to talk about where should your arms be. So we all learned back in the day of the tactical turtle. And I still see schools like this. And they see pictures like, come to our security academy. Like, why? Are you constipated? Why are you standing like this? All right. So I'm going to pick on Billy again because I know I can. Come on down. All right. So if I'm extended all the way out like this, what kind of grip do I have? So go your tactical turtle all the way. I'll put my hand in here. Now try to hold it. Try it again. Okay, now I want you to just relax your elbows a little bit. Now put your hands out. Clamp it down. See the difference there? Yeah. So put your hand in mine. I'm going to do it. Put your hand up. Okay. There's no side-to-side pressure when you're fully extended. Now, if I get my grip and I got a side-to-side, see that? So all of you are shooting straight out like that with the elbows locked. You're being inefficient. Thank you. Oh, just stay up for a second. We'll go into one other thing. So again, this is a non-firing tool. And just to be safe, we'll take the non-firing bullets out of the non-firing tool and allow you to hold it. Okay. Go into a total bladed stance, or a total, and go all the way out like you were. Arms out locked. Is that a stable stance? No. No. Okay. Take your support side foot and go back about half a shoe length. Okay. Now slightly bend your arms like we just showed. Now watch this. Is that a stable stance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So who's been doing it wrong? All of us, right? Thank you. That's because we watch all the cool guy stuff on TV and YouTube and think that's how they shoot. And you see them all squinched up. So for tactical turtle, so the gun goes out, now I've got to punch my head down. How many like focal planes do I got going on there? It's like I got the gun, now I got to lower my eyes, and I maneuver the gun. How about if we just bring our gun up to our eye level? Now it's on the same focal plane. And your time between drawing out of the holster and your shot is going to be much, much less. So I worked on this just a couple weeks ago with a friend of mine. And I'm normally like a 1.4. That is from concealment to firing 1.4. And he helped me even keeping my shoulders down because I was still doing this. Okay? He said, relax your shoulders. And so when I relaxed my shoulders, I got down to a .82. So